join me in welcoming our two speakers today.
The rest of that sentence was that Domingo built an 8-page little tiny newspaper 14 years ago into a media empire in Lakeside, which includes 2 newspapers, 4 websites, Instagram, WhatsApp, Google, well, yeah, we are Google News, so that was the rest of that sentence. I want to underscore what our mistress of ceremony said about stopping by the table back there with Cruz Roja. They are a wonderful institution. We have been supporting them for years, and if you don't know it, everything Cruz Roja does is free. The ambulances are free, the emergency care is free. And for those of you from the United States, I can't talk about Canada, but for those of you from the United States, you know that if you call an ambulance, you can kiss $1,500 away. And that's just when it arrives at your house. If it takes you to an emergency room that is not, quote, in your network, you can probably kiss $5,000 away. So, and they do it all for free. So stop by and say hello to them. If I am a little hesitant today, it's because Luz Marie has fitted me with new bifocals, and I've never worn bifocals before. So if I suddenly start saying gobbledygook, it's because I'm looking at the wrong page. Okay, all right. You may not know this, but you're living in a country that is the media powerhouse of Spanish-speaking Latin America. Because of the concentration of newspapers, television stations, radio stations, magazines here is greater than in any other Spanish-speaking country in Latin America. There are 420 newspapers in Mexico. There are 1,600 magazines. I can't keep track of the number of radio stations, even though I go to an annual conference where I meet many of the radio network presidents. And I can't keep track of the TV stations, although they're owned by just 2 companies. But Mexico City alone has 15 newspapers, including the government newspaper El Nacional. And there's a national English newspaper in Mexico, Mexico Daily News, which I'm sure some of you probably read. 3 newspapers in Mexico are bilingual. One of them the 2 of them are in Baja, and the other one is right here. We have the Baja Post in Tijuana, the Atención in San Miguel, and here we have Semanario Laguna Lakeside News, one of 3 bilingual newspapers in the country. Now, why is that important? We have a very robust news environment here in Lakeside, and of course we're in the middle of a very robust news environment nationally. Only a handful of cities in the United States have more than 1 newspaper. And if you live there, you know that in those cities, often the 2 newspapers or 3 newspapers are owned by 1 company, which also owns the TV station and also owns the radio stations too. That's not the case here. We have, in fact, Chapala and Jocotepec are the only municipalities in Mexico with 2 English language newspapers, the Lakeside News and the Guadalajara Reporter, and they very definitely are not owned by the same company. So again, I ask the question, why is this important? Why should you care? Well, media and democracy go together, and I've been working in this particular field for almost 50 years now. More correctly, I would say that without media, there is no democracy. In places where there is no democracy, when journalists try to shine their light on the government, they are ruthlessly destroyed. 32 journalists have been killed worldwide this year alone. 300 have been put in prison this year alone. 17 were murdered last year in Mexico. Over 100 journalists have been murdered in Mexico in the past decade. And we're a democratic country. Just think about Afghanistan or Iran, places that aren't democratic countries. But here, journalists have been verbally attacked by the president of Mexico, AMLO, almost every morning at the press conference, the morning press conference. And just last week, the governor Jalisco, you know, our very happy, smiling, rotund governor, lit out after a newspaper that was criticizing him in public, gave them a very huge dressing down, and then said he was going to cut off their government advertising revenue. So, why do governments, supposedly the representatives of the people, attack journalists who are just doing their job? And their job is informing you of what's going on. Well, because government keeps, or rather media keeps governments honest. They hold governments accountable. They facilitate public discourse. They make it easier for you to talk to one another about what's going on. Try that in China. That won't get you very far. And most importantly, they ensure that the decision-making process from the national government all the way down to the municipalidad is as transparent as possible. That you know what your representatives are doing. Because as soon as you don't know what your representatives are doing, they stop being your representatives, or they stop representing you. In democratic systems, a diverse and unbiased media landscape is essential for promoting civic engagement and upholding democratic values. And this is true all over the world. There are hundreds and hundreds of examples of journalists shining their light on unaccountable activities by governments and all of a sudden disappearing, or of journalists shining their light on those activities and the government slowly, reluctantly changing. But we know when media is suppressed, when journalists are killed, when publishers are intimidated, you don't know what your government's doing. And it's really critical that you do. Now here in Lakeside, bilingual media is the key to you knowing what's going on. We have two communities here which are somewhat separated by language. I know many expats here speak some Spanish, read some Spanish, and many Mexicans also read some English. But overall, the media landscape is divided into English and Spanish. We're changing that. We have changed that. That's important because only one of those two communities can vote. The Spanish-speaking community, the Mexican community. But the other community, the expat community, which is a major contributor to the culture here, to the economy here, to the activities here, which gives money, which gives expertise, which gives volunteer hours, we can't vote. But we feel the same impacts of what happens in the Ayuntamiento, the City Hall in Chapala and in Hocatepec. We feel the impacts when Revolucion gets torn up for the third time and nobody really knows why. We feel the impacts when the Walmart intersection is closed down for a week and nobody's really quite sure why. We feel the impacts when the taxes suddenly go up 20%. We feel those impacts just like the Mexican community does, but we can't vote. But we have to live with the water shortages, we have to live with the botched street repairs, and we also get the festivals, we also get the fun too, but we can't vote. And when I say we, I'm putting myself in the expat camp, but I probably really shouldn't do that. But it doesn't mean that we don't have a voice. We do. We can lobby. We can show up at committees and council meetings and comment. We can buttonhole local officials. And in extreme cases, we can file lawsuits. And for those of you who were around 2 years ago who remember the kerfuffle over the dog park in West Ajijic, that was part of a scam by the government here to play a little game with a state agency that it owed money for, you know that eventually expats sued and it got changed. And it got changed in a way that took care of the dogs. So just because we can't vote doesn't mean we can't act, but we can only act if we know what's going on. Now, like I said, fortunately many of you do speak Spanish or you read Spanish, so you can follow your government by reading the Spanish press. You can read Semanario Laguna, which is the major source of information for Spanish-reading people and has been for the past 14 years. But those of you who don't read Spanish, you have alternatives. You have the Guadalajara Reporter, which covers expat happenings and some Mexican news, and then you have Lakeside News, which covers all of the Mexican happenings and also, all the Mexican happenings and expat happenings also. The way we do that is we have 7 reporters, 3 editors, who are all Mexican. They write stories in Spanish. And we have a group of translators called Todos English, which is an organization that was founded here at LCS. And they volunteer, they translate the stories, and then they rewrite them so they look like the New York Times. Those of you who speak Spanish, who are expats, who are English speakers, you know that Spanish doesn't exactly translate over into English. And Mexican reporting, Mexican writing is not the same as that in the United States and Canada. So we have a group of people who not only translate, but who are artists in telling you what those words mean, what this agency does, what that law means, what this slang is all about. So that's how we do it here. We translate the important expat news into Spanish too. We translate expat news so that the Mexican community can see a little bit of what's going on in the expat community too. That's part of our mission, is to bring these two communities together. So not only can we both communicate, but we also both keep our eye on the government. And not so much in this administration and the previous administration, which was this administration, but the one before that, you really needed to keep your eye on the government. There were a lot of things that went on there that they really didn't want you to know about for good reason. And we did our best to make sure you did know about it. So, how is it that Lakeside has one of the 3 bilingual newspapers in Mexico? What led to that? Well, that was because of the vision of one man, a Mexican man, who's sitting right here, who's going to work his way around the post and come up here and tell you what his vision was and how he made it real. Domingo Marques Flores, who is the CEO of Laguna Media and the founder of the 3rd bilingual newspaper in Mexico.
Hi everyone. Who doesn't understand my English? It's not my natural language. So yes. So first of all, we've been a newspaper here for 14 years. We start reporting just the town here at Jijic in Chapala. Then we grow to the north, to west. West. Yes, to the west. Jocotepec, Chapala, and then as soon as we were growing, Patrick appeared in our way because we were struggling. We having different financial problems because we were a print newspaper. So in those times, it was appearing the social media, web, and people wasn't. It was a big competition for publicity and things, so we were struggling. Patrick appearing in the way, and we plan to create a newspaper because we're expat community, because a lot of people ask us what they see in the newspaper, and Patrick appearing in our way. We plan to do a bilingual newspaper to inform the expat community about the news, and they can do their opinion well informed, because we used to heard in the websites or in the groups a lot of things that it was not real, or it was just something gossip, and so and well, our reporter do their job. It's not we are not its competition. We are it's good that in a town that has more newspaper is better, so buy both. So get both. It's in more media. It's better for the society. So we but there were stories that they were not coming out. They were just reading, known by the Mexican people here, because so we decided to start translating. We do a program. Patrick created a program that was born here. It was Todos English. We create 20 volunteer people who translate every week the stories, and the stories that we publish every week. Why we decided because I grew here. I grew here, so it was necessary. I always saw like a barrera, like a barrier, yes, between Spanish and English. Always when I grew here, and when I have the opportunity to create the newspaper, I have the dream to put both societies together. I grew in a bilingual college. I'm nervous, so I'm forgetting my English. So yes, so I always grow with expat community people. So, but I always heard that they have wrong stories about what was happening at Lakeside, because they were just hearing from the maid, or they didn't understand something, and it was a gossip and blah blah blah. And right now that we've been publishing, I noticed that the expat community is receiving well. We used 2 years ago, we just published two pages in the print newspaper. From 4 weeks ago, we print completely bilingual, so we have 2 front pages. One, and you can turn your newspaper.
Why don't you show it to them?
Okay. Yes. Here. Yes, you can have it here in English. Yes, and you can turn here and it's Spanish. So you got all your news here, and then you got your Spanish news. We not only do that translation just like translate by translate. We always think and bring you the best news for the expat community and also for the Mexican community. Some stories you don't see it in the newspaper because they don't get translated, but we have lakesidenews.com, which is a website where you can subscribe and you get all the stories translated that all the reporters of Laguna made in the news. But if you wanna see it before it gets in the web, you need to get your newspaper. So it's published. The news are published first in the print. Then we publish it in the other thing that we are doing deep stories. We're just not like left in the topics, just like if we heard a topic that it's important for the society, we're going deeper. We are saying to our reporters, go deeper in the story and follow up, because sometimes you just read a story and then you never know what happened to it. So yes, we tell to our reporters to go further, and it's very important, like for us to that Ajijic, which is a bilingual community. It's very the expat community is very important that has their bilingual newspapers. The newspaper was a newspaper that was born in Ajijic. Right now we have different things, but it's a newspaper from here, from Ajijic. That's why it's bilingual. Okay, that's all.
Domingo's being modest. Right? This was his vision all along, and I want to tell you how this all happened, and it all happened because of Woodstock. Right? That's right, isn't it? When I first moved here about 5 years ago, I had a radio show in Los Angeles. I interviewed bands and musicians, and I brought the radio show here. I rented a studio on Constitucion, which was 3 doors down from the El Chameleon bar. Everybody know the El Chameleon bar? The one with the big lizard painted on it? Okay, all right. They decided to celebrate Woodstock, the 50th anniversary. And I thought this would be a great topic for one of my music columns. And so I came down with my video camera, and I was shooting video, and there was a young woman there with a big camera, and she was shooting pictures, stills. And when we were done, she came up to me and she said, "Could we have your video at the newspaper?" And I said, "What newspaper?" You know? And she said, "Semanario Laguna." And I said, "I never heard of it." I said, "Well, I'll call the publisher." And he came down, he talked to me, And we made a deal, and he got my video, and then he asked me if I would write the story about this event and give it to him to publish in his newspaper in English. And I said, sure. And then he asked me the following week if I would do 2 pages worth of stories in English, all as a volunteer, you know. And I said, sure. And then he asked me if I would be the editor of those papers. All this for free, of course, as a volunteer. And I said, sure. He has a way of talking people into doing things. Well, that work went on for about a year, and then he said, Patrick, I want to take all of our Spanish stories that all of our Mexican reporters write, and I want to publish them online in English, and I want you to do it, and it can't cost anything. Well, we figured out how to do it. It's cost me a little bit, but that's okay. And I've now become part of a Mexican news organization. And let me tell you, this has been the most wonderful cultural education I've ever had. I now have a good idea of how small Mexican businesses operate and how Mexican news organizations operate. And it's nothing like the United States, let me tell you. But we get it done. Sometimes we get it done at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. Yeah, okay, yeah, 2 or 3 in the morning. But we get it done. So the process by which this was created probably took about 4 months. We had to train our reporters, we had to train our translators, we had to train our proofers, we had to train our editors, we had to train our advertisers, we had to train our vendors. And all that took a long time. And incidentally, we should tell people where they can buy it too. Yes.
You can get your copy in Super Lake. Right now we're selling the newspaper in Super Lake, El Torito. We got in both Pancho's Deli, Ola Market, Mama's Bar, at in Chapala, the American Legion, in Chapala, and in different little stores here. Around all la tienditas.
Domingo, what time do you expect to have it in the stores on Saturday?
When does it get into the stores?
Okay. Yes, we are planning to get it right. We were getting like 10, 11 because we were having problems delivering. We were fixing our roads, but this week. Actually, we have a meeting yesterday about that. So we're planning to having at 9 o'clock in the big markets, Saturday mornings. And then if you want to get it delivered to your home, which you can get it low cost. Katia is subscribing people on the back, so you can subscribe there. You can receive your newspaper in your door, in your house.
We've also have a different model too. We are not, because he was born and raised here. He went to the Loyola School next to the LLT, the theater, and his whole family is here. They're embedded in the community, and the mission of Lakeside News, Semanario Laguna, is not only just to deliver news, but is to make this a better place. And we do that in a variety of ways. We donate money. We donated 60,000 pesos last year to events here, most of them in support of Cruz Roja. We have underwritten productions at the Lakeside Little Theater. We have underwritten productions at La Cochera Cultural. So we give money. We also give publicity. Whenever there's an event going on that will help the community, we make sure that it's in our calendar, and if possible, we also do a feature on it. And we organize things. This guy put together the Day of the Dead celebration in Ajijic. Wow. That's why he doesn't have as much hair as he used to. This guy also put together the Neil James Legacy Committee and set up the Neil James arts show here. So we do those kinds of things. We use our organizational capability to help the community too. Anything else you want to say other than you can subscribe if you yeah. By the way, we do deliver to your house, and as he said, sometime on Saturday, our paper boys, you may have seen them. They're riding around on bicycles. When the paper boys don't show up, you see him running around with an armload of newspapers delivering them, or me driving him, as the case may be. So you can subscribe to us either online, or you can subscribe to us online and in paper. You can have it delivered at your house. That's another thing we want to make sure that anybody who wants it but who can't get to the store can get it at their house. And all that, back there you'll see two signs that say Lakeside News. They're right next to the table being run by Cruz Roja, so you should stop by, buy a ticket to the Cruz Roja event, take out a subscription to Lakeside News, and you will find that this has been a really, really profitable morning for you.
Hello, yes. We've got questions, I'm sure. I would like to ask my own question to start. Can you tell us what we should be paying attention to right now? What are a couple of the bigger stories that we should be paying attention to?
I'll answer that first, and then I'll talk to him. For those of you who have a copy of the paper, seen it, down here in the bottom, the story about dog rescuers in panic over new regulations, and that also applies to anybody who's here with a dog who goes back and forth. The CDC has issued regulations which make it really difficult to bring your dog back into the United States. And so you should read the story, follow the website, and keep track of that one. What else would you recommend to keep track of?
Microphone. Microphone. See, we got we report every week, or we try to report how it's increasing the lake, and we're having every week reports. Right now we're winning 20 centimeters to the lake, and we have all the, and how was the pass away of the father of the governor. The president of Chapala came out to his duty because he was out for elections. So we have Alejandro Aguirre come in as a president again, because he was in license, he was not in office. So you can know that we have president again. And then you can find different stories. You can get also security stories, sports, entertainment. We got opinion columns about politics. We got the column of Patrick that talks about the culture, and you can get a lot of this.
One other thing you may want to keep track of is the Pueblo Magico Committee. As you know, we are Pueblo Magico, and under the Pueblo Magico legislation, every Pueblo Magico has a committee which gets money, which does projects, and which supposedly helps improve the Pueblo Magico. The original committee that was put together spent most of its time fighting with the municipalidad, and got very little done. The law was changed to reduce the number of members on that committee to 7, 4 of which have to be government officials. And they appointed the new committee, and there's no expats on it. So that's something you might want to watch.
We didn't know, and these things happened when you had a bilingual publication. We didn't know, like Las Salvias and all that part, they didn't have water for more than 3 months, because people buy the water, they don't complain, like they just complain in their groups. We didn't know, but we're gonna work a story about all that part that they've been without water, like for 3 months. People is buying their water. They can afford it, but it's the government is their job to give their services.
Okay, I have a question back here.
It's mainly a comment. I'm Mexican-American citizen, okay? I hope you are a Mexican citizen, because I don't appreciate that you offended my Mexican president. Without giving more facts, previous administration created big contracts with media and newspapers to silence them and only speak the positive. This president did not create that. And also the president attacked journalists. Excuse me. No, excuse me. Excuse me. No. Answer the question. Okay. But he offended my president. And he doesn't have the right. Okay? Also, yes. Okay. That's all. Okay. So, also, there is a political, there are two political articles in this paper, but I haven't seen any article about the Chapala presidency. It has been challenged. And also the governor of Jalisco election, it has been a fraud. And most likely the election is going to be redone. So
we focus, we focus more in like Lakeside. We know that this is happening in the state about the election of Morena and all this, but we are focusing more. We got state news and national news, but we are focusing more at Lakeside. We don't have any opinion about the president. We are a media. We don't have an opinion of anything. That's the general opinion of all the media. We don't have any opinion about the president or anything. We just report what society does. We are just a mirror of what society is happening. We don't have any opinion about any of the president, of any figure. We just inform. We try to don't put our opinion in the notes. That's your you have to create your opinion. That's why it's different. Newspapers, left newspaper, right newspaper. In the business of the newspapers, we have left-hand side newspapers, and we have the other newspapers because they have their editorial line. You are free to read your left-hand side newspaper that support Trump or not support Trump or whatever, or the other newspaper. Then you can create your opinion. The newspapers, they don't have an opinion as they own. You create your own opinion. We don't have a lot of news of national because we're focused on Lakeside society here in this community. But we also have the news national and state, but mostly we are focusing in Lakeside.
Good. We do have a number of columnists, and of course their columns are their opinion, and I've told our translators and our proofers that when they edit the columns by our Spanish writers that they leave them as alone as possible. They may make changes for grammar that you may not understand, but it's their opinion. That's not our opinion, and we publish a variety of them. One of those columns is mine. Most of my columns do focus on Lakeside politics. Occasionally I may talk about U.S.-American relations because I taught that at the university for a while. U.S.-Mexican international relations, but mostly we focus right here. And all of our columnists, that's their opinion. It's not our opinion.
Yes, I've noticed as I'm reading Mexican reporting that it seems to be more circumspect and a bit more oblique than we're used to from the States. So I was hoping you could tell us what we need to know about reporting in Mexico that we may not understand.
Well, I'm going to tell you my view of it, and Domingo can say his view of it. The one thing you won't see in our paper or any Mexican paper is the names of people arrested. You may see Pedro M. or Luis B. or just their final initials, and that's all throughout Mexico. That's the way Mexicans report. They don't put the last names in of people who are arrested. Even though in Mexico, as many of you know, if you get arrested, you can be jailed for a year before your trial. Part of that is also for the safety of the reporters. Sometimes people are arrested are members of families or organizations that don't like to see themselves in the press, and they may want to eliminate the reporters. So that's something else. Mexican reporting, and I'm speaking for myself now, he may want to correct me in this, but in having done this for a while, there is a format to US and Canadian and even most European news, and that's a lead with the who, what, why, when in the lead. And then you get to the how and other information as you go through the story. Mexican news doesn't work that way. You frequently get descriptions of the people involved or what's going on. You may get a little opinion up in the first 3 or 4 paragraphs. The actual topic of the news story may be three paragraphs down. Mexican readers know this, they're quite comfortable with it, but that is a difference, and that's one thing our translators and our proofers have to deal with, is we sometimes have to rearrange things. Is there any other differences you can think of? Yeah, any quirks of Mexican reporting?
Yes, it's okay. First, the way to report in small towns like here, Lakeside, is different to report than in the big cities. To begin with, because we see each other every day, so we just cannot put your name in front page and destroy your life in your community. We are not. You need to be very careful with the news you publish in the local newspaper. As always, the reporters, they always have a risk. We got one reporter that we have to take him out of this municipality because the president, I won't tell you what president, but they
pointed the gun out.
Yes, yes. So we have to take him out. We rent him a house out of there. He have to report also. So those things happens here also. We are not like those when people doesn't like, or government doesn't like the story that you are published, they will call you. They will call the office. So that doesn't change. The only thing you need to be more careful, because it's a small community. What I will like and what I will say, it's that that's the difference. It's that you have more compromise when you're a local newspaper. You got a big compromise with the society. Like as I said, you cannot publish just because we see us every day. Sometimes when the police have this, they pick up young people that they got in the corners. They send us the press release with their photo, but then they will be out of the jail, and they would stop 2-3 days. What if we publish that story there in the newspaper? Probably you won't get him, and he just was smoking something. He is not dangerous. We try to be very careful what we publish. Yes, that's what I can say. Yes.
We had one situation in which my wife and I actually happened upon a shootout between apparently 2 families, and they happened to be going up a road that we were going up, and we stopped. And I put on my press badge and I came over. The police were there were cars, there was a wounded man sitting on the curb, and the lieutenant took me aside and he says, "You're not taking any pictures." Well, if I was in the United States, I would have said, "Hey, it's my First Amendment right. I can take pictures." But in Mexico, if the cop says you're not going to take any pictures, you're not going to take any pictures. Later on, we had a negotiation and I was allowed to take a picture of the police car with its lights flashing, but that was about it. So there are differences here. Next question.
It's really a statement for you dog owners. I just found out myself.
Mike.
Is that on? Sorry. But this is just for you dog owners. I've not had the opportunity to read that article, but
referencing a few difficulties. I will tell you that just a few days ago, my dog has to be microchipped to travel from Mexico to the US, US to Mexico and back, and I think the same is true for Canada. So if your pups have not been, if you're flying anyway, I don't know about driving, but if you're flying anyway, they have to be microchipped now. And Pet Place here will do it wonderfully and
It
very
is driving
reasonably.
too.
Taking me a minute, I'm coming, I'm coming.
Thank you. This is about vending, your training in vending, and maybe it's just me, but I have seen this newspaper before, but I always see it in the stores with Laguna up top, and the vendors who come around the plaza and where other places, they come up to us as gringos and they show us Laguna, they show us the Spanish side. It would be really good if they could know that the gringos like to see that it's English. Oh, this newspaper is in English. So maybe you can train the vendors a little bit about our venues. Thank you.
Thank you both for presenting today. I have a question related to your opening comments, Patrick, how you made a statement of what a dangerous landscape Mexico is for journalism. I think Mexico's in the top 3 or maybe the top 5 in terms of the violence against journalists. And I would like to ask both of you, what do you think has to change in Mexico to remove that tragedy? We all feel such sorrow when politicians and journalists are attacked and killed in Mexico. We know that very few of these crimes get solved, but what do you think really has to change for Mexico to lose that infamy, especially as it relates to journalists being attacked?
As an expat, it would be presumptive of me to tell the Mexican society, the Mexican government how it has to change. So I don't want to do that. That's why I write columns that talk about the relationship between democracy and the media. I try to put it out there as an information source, and also use my experience in other countries too, to point out that when that does change, the society gets better. But as far as specific kinds of things, I don't know. I do know from my own country and from other countries that I've worked in as a journalist that it does change with the leadership. A new president, particularly a president if you're dealing with national politics, and the press office of the president can radically change the attitude towards the press. And I've seen that several times. Actually with the Carter administration in the US and later on with the Obama administration, they were like night and day how they treated reporters. The Obama administration was much better. So it does change with the leadership, but as far as recommending changes to the Mexican society, I'm going to leave that to my boss, sir.
That's a big problem. Yes, to change. Okay, can you repeat your question again? Yes.
What has to change in Mexico to address violence and impunity against journalists and politicians who are being killed?
Okay, first, I think first of all, it's different problems. What is happening in this here? First is economically. Before, in the old decades, a government used to put a lot of money into the media. So Mexico, right now, the media in Mexico is changing. It's with this new government with AMLO, because this guy say, decades ago, government used to put a lot of money. So media in Mexico, they didn't publish without with the money of the government. It's very, very difficult survive on as an independent newspaper. The conditions in the press, it's very different in Mexico than in the States. So right now that AMLO came into the power, he was a left-hand side candidate. So in those times, he had big fight with the press. Like they never interviewed him because all the money was putting off from the state to all the big newspaper. So so when AMLO came, a lot of the money that used to go to those newspaper, they come in a big fight, government and media. What I think this is a process. It's something that is happening in the democracy. I think people should start like buying more. The newspaper, we need to get the money more from the people than the government. It's very important that you get buy your newspaper, get your subscription. Not only get your free news in internet, because you are killing the newspaper, who is giving you the news. So one is economically. Right now, I think a newspaper has to be completely independent. The other, in those times, because all the money was put in it, government don't use. They are not right now. They are in all the Mexican politics. Their mentality is changing, but they think that they were the owners of the country. So you cannot criticize them. They were like not like royalty. Like they go to. It's not like in the States that you just do a public job in your ayuntamiento and that's all. No, he become like part of the royalty. I'm in the government of Mexico. So that mentality is also changing. They are learning that we have to criticize them. It cost us a lot that the president here, all the Chapala government people, right now the people in Chapala, the government, it's more used that we criticize them because we have newspapers, but we have like more problems in Jocotepec, like the governments in Jocotepec, like those people, they don't have too many newspapers, so they are not used that somebody talks about them. They need to. It's. I think that it's a process. It's economically by idiosyncrasy. Yes, it's different factors, but I think it will change. I hope so.
Thank you both so much.